Order tonight's meeting of the Board of Public Works, July 18th, 2023. I am Elizabeth Carone, Vice President, standing in for President Kyla Cox-Deckard, who is unable to be with us tonight. So we will start with messages from board members. No messages. All right, moving along to petitions and remonstrances. If anyone has anything to discuss that is not about an item on the agenda, please feel free to come to the podium, speak your name. If you are on chat, we would appreciate you using the chat function or the raised hand function. Any comments on something other than what's on the agenda? Okay. So then we will move along to appeals, and we'll start with the appeal of the notice of violation for the right-of-way use along South Rogers by Duke Energy.
Hi, it's Alex Gray from City of Bloomington Engineering Department. I'm bringing the appeal forward and giving kind of some background of why we're bringing it to the board. So the first thing is that they have had, the area is over by the warehouse. For clarification of where it is, it's near their parking lot. And we initially received a complaint from a resident that is a wheelchair user and asked us to come out and check out the location. This was on June 7th. And then we went out there and observed that there was backfill covering most of the sidewalk except for maybe a foot or so. There's some pictures in the packet if you're able to look at those. And then I believe it's photo number 1. And then also there was a gravel shoulder that was added on the side of it, and we deemed it not passable. And so we had contacted Duke Energy to put at least closure signs or to do something to make it where it was passable. And then we went to the 8th, and we went back and observed the area. And there was closure signs up, but only half of them were up. Only on the north side, the south side did not have any. And so we went again and said that that it was not up to where we were wanting it to be. And then repairs came on the 9th, which was a Friday, and went out and observed them working on it and noticed that it wasn't being put back to the standards that we had asked. And we had moved forward with fines and that nature.
Facility trail that goes to Switchyard Park, is that a paved trail?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. And that was the main reason why we didn't think that it was closed properly, because yes, the sidewalk portion does go into, like there's no bridge that goes across the, I guess you could call it drainage way or creek, but there is the trail path that curls off, and so most people do take that path when they go into Switchyard or coming back toward Rogers, so we didn't feel it was closed properly.
And 3 of the fines are about not following the approved maintenance of traffic plan, and then 3 of the fines are about the improper rebuilding of the sidewalk. Is that correct? It says excavation materials and backfill.
The excavation materials and backfill is actually for the gravel that was piled onto the sidewalk. The repairs, it was actually just a warning. We did not impose fines for that aspect of it, as that was kind of, we didn't feel that that was the main issue. It was more of the fact that the sidewalk was closed and for an extended period of time. And we didn't feel that that was something we wanted to keep happening.
Okay. Is there anyone from Duke Energy who would like to speak to this? Okay. Can I ask you actually to go to the podium and state your name so we have it for the record, please?
No problem. Yeah, my name's Chad McCory, Duke Energy, Senior Project Manager for the southern part of Indiana, DEI. Yeah, and so Not sure, you said you want somebody to just speak open here on kind of the fines and where we are. Yeah, okay, so essentially what Dawn, she's the project manager, she's on the line here, I think.
She is on Zoom, and I've asked her to unmute. So-
Okay, good. So any kind of like project-specific questions or something Dawn can answer. But essentially on June the 7th, Dawn was notified of the backfill in the sidewalk and reached out to the contractor performing the work for us. And they had built that, what I'd call that gravel pad there around the pole that they thought was good enough for the access, which is why they didn't have the signs put up for the sidewalk closure. They were trying to be as respectful as they could to the, everybody in the city that had to use the sidewalk, so they deemed that better option than closing it. Alex sent an email, like I said, that afternoon on the 7th. I think Dawn got it like 2:33 o'clock in the afternoon. Reached out, had him go put the signs up the next day, and then also let Alex know that we had restoration crews going to be there Thursday and that Friday to make that sidewalk passable. Though that backfill has to be there for settling for those new poles, so we couldn't do anything about just taking the rock right out of the sidewalk. So they put the sign up on the 8th, and then on the 9th came in on that side to that didn't have the sign to fix the sidewalk or make it passable for everybody, which the standard was the 60 inches from the pole. I think they had like 72 inches, something like that is what they provided as a workaround until we could get the rest of it figured out. We felt like notified on the 7th. We found out by the 8th we had our signs back up and back in compliance, and then on the 9th had the new concrete in and passable.
Picture in our packet that says photo 1 gravel backfill blocking the sidewalk with the fill around the pole. Is that typically how a sidewalk is left mid-repair? You were talking about the gravel is needed for settling, but that's clearly not passable for someone with accessibility issues.
Yeah, agreed. And if you look at that same picture, I don't have it sitting here in front of me, but they put that gravel, what they thought pass around, which they thought that was acceptable. The contractor, when we reached out that evening to find out why it was left that way and all that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it'd be photo 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's like a half moon. You can't hardly see it, and that picture's kind of cut off, but they put essentially like a half moon gravel drive, as they called it, to kind of, instead of closing the sidewalk all the way down.
Does the other representative from Duke Energy want to add anything on Zoom?
Hi, this is Dawn Bronk. No, Chad pretty much explained it exactly what happened. So unless you have any further questions, I don't have anything to add what he had to say.
Any questions from anyone in the public, either in person or on Zoom? Again, if you're on Zoom, please use the chat function or raise your hand.
Hi, I'm Greg Alexander. I hope comment is appropriate. I first want to acknowledge Duke does a heck of a job bringing electricity to my house. I really appreciate that. And the workers have actually done a pretty good job of staying off of the beeline, which I also appreciate. They said they would, and for the most part they have. The question here is whether they're going to be held to their maintenance of traffic plan. And to try to say how important that is, I have to acknowledge how much work there is to do. Like it kind of looks like a kind of a crappy sidewalk the way it is before they messed with it. So why put so much effort into preserving it? And the maintenance of traffic plan, if they'd followed it, still would have closed that sidewalk and caused that grief to pedestrians. It just would have had appropriate signage. And there is so much work to do. We need to stop accepting maintenance of traffic plans that aren't very good. We need to have facilities on both sides of the street that are of a high quality so that we can have detours. We need to have, the street needs to be safer so that when people do walk in the middle of the street, that they don't have necessarily as much of a life and death situation. And it's because of all that work that we need to do that it's so important that we just have this basic step that the MOTs are enforced. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public, either in person or on Zoom? Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I'm just going to say that my inclination is in recognition of the fact that the work was being done and the new sidewalk was being poured on June 9th. My preference is to uphold the violations for June 7th and June 8th, but to uphold the appeal, to grant the appeal for June 9th.
I'm comfortable with that as well.
Okay. All right.
Any other comments or questions before calling for a vote?
No.
All right, is there a motion?
Yes, I move that we grant the appeal of the notice of violation for right-of-way use along South Rogers by Duke Energy for the violations that were assessed on June 9. I vote that we uphold the violations for the same notice of violation for the violations that were noted on June 7th and June 8th.
Second, I will call the roll. Lloyd?
Aye.
Carone? Aye. Motion passes. So with that, we will move along to Title VI abatements. And number one is the abatement at 105 East Driscoll Drive.
Arnold from Housing and Neighborhood Development. This is a property that we wrote citations to on June 9th, June 16th, and June 30th for scattered litter, trash, and debris. They had a lot of bike parts and accumulation of trash bags and scattered litter. We've had no cleanup since we did the violation or the citations, and we're asking the board to give us permission to abate the property.
Questions from the public, either in person or on Zoom. Again, if you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand function or the chat function. I'm sorry? Absolutely. If you would come up to the podium and state your name, please.
My name is Scott Hogshood. I live next door to this property, and I just want to say, whatever you can do, please help us. It's really awful. Thank you. That's all I want to say.
Thank you. So what kind of communication, if any, have you had with the owners of the property?
We've had phone conversations and it's actually sent the citations by mail to the owner.
Or regular?
Regular mail. Initially, we didn't have a correct address for the owner, but we found the address and have actually had phone conversations with her.
Since the correct address was?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Any other questions or comments on this item? Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move that we uphold the abatement at 105 East Driscoll Drive.
Second, I'll call the roll. Lloyd?
Aye.
Carone, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, we'll go on to the abatement at 2233 South Starview Lane.
My name is Kenny Lyford, Neighborhood Compliance Officer, Housing Neighborhood Development. I'm here asking for a continuous abatement for a property located at 2233 South Starview Lane. This property has been abandoned according to neighbors. When COVID started, the neighbors informed me that they just packed up and left. And I believe they're from the Middle East, but I'm not sure, but they are no longer in the house. It is, I issued some tickets last year to this property, but the neighbors pitched in and cut the grass last year. Excuse me. This year they decided they really do not want to do that. So after a warning, I issued a $50 fine and went ahead and checked the box for BPW.
I assume from what you said that all tries to communicate with the owners have not worked?
We have not communicated. It was actually supposed to come to the last meeting, but because legal said the letter could not be delivered, I believed, so it had to be, I don't know all the legal stuff, but so it was pushed to this meeting. But yes, we've tried, and there's no communication at all.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the public on this item? Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move that we uphold the abatement at 2233 South Starview Lane.
Second, I'll call the roll. Lloyd?
Aye.
Caron, aye. Motion passes. Moving along to the abatement at 3522 East Morningside Drive.
Hi, my name is Chastina Hayes, and I'm from the Housing and Neighborhood Development. And we issued citations on May 10th, June 6th, June 14th, and June 21st for the overgrowth, and I have not had any communication with the owner, and they have not mowed anything.
When's the last time that you were out to see the property?
This week, I took pictures, I think it was Monday maybe, and nothing. It's still just as bad as it was.
Okay. What communication have you had with the owner?
Zero communication.
What attempts have you made to communicate with the owner?
Well, I posted at the site, and then they also mailed too.
Okay.
Questions from the public on this item?
I have nothing on Zoom.
Okay. Hearing none, do I hear a motion?
I move that we uphold the abatement at 3522 East Morningside Drive.
Second, I'll call the roll. Lloyd?
Aye.
Caron, aye. Motion passes. Now we'll move to the consent agenda, which tonight includes Resolution 2023-39, a new mobile vendor for Bloomington Tie on Wheels LLC, DBA Little Bowl. Resolution 2023-40 for Uno Mas Taco Truck. Resolution 2023-41, Hoosiers Outrun Cancer. Resolution 2023-42, the Pop-Up Market. Resolution 2023-43, Bloomington Housing Authority Family Night Out, and approval of payroll. Is there anything that needs to be removed from the consent agenda tonight? Okay. Any questions from the board on the consent agenda?
No. Do
Okay.
we have any comments from the public?
Are there any comments from the public or questions about the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, do we have a motion?
Yes. I move that we approve the consent agenda for tonight's meeting, July 18th, 2023.
Second, I'll call roll. Lloyd?
Aye.
Caron, aye. Motion passes. Well, moving along in the agenda to new business, and we'll start with Indiana Brownfields Program Phase 1 Site Access Agreement.
Good evening, Chris Wheeler with City Legal. The Utilities Department is in the process of installing stormwater infrastructure throughout the city on any of the city properties that are considered remnant properties in order to help facilitate and accommodate stormwater runoff throughout the city. There are 3 properties that have been identified in the staff report that was provided to the board in its packet this evening. One of those properties is owned by City of Bloomington and therefore Board of Public Works. This property is located in an area where brownfield remediation has occurred in the past, and as a result, the Utilities Department is taking steps to ensure that these 3 parcels do not need any soil remediation prior to the installation of stormwater infrastructure. Through this process, City of Bloomington Utilities has applied to the Indiana Finance Authority to receive funding to do the investigation and any follow-up soil remediation. The Indiana Finance Authority requires access to the property so that it and its contractor can come on the property, assuming that we are approved to have this financing provided by IFA. They would need to come onto the property to do the investigatory work on the Phase 1 for the brownfield investigation. That is why we are presenting to the board tonight this right of access or site access agreement, and ask that the board review and approve and sign the access agreement. It needs to go in as part of the application to the IFA. I'm happy to try and answer any questions.
Questions from the board?
Yeah, you said that the IFA is providing the funding for the Phase 1?
If our application is approved, then the Indiana Finance Authority would pay for the Phase 1, the investigation of the property and the Phase 1 work that's done on the property. So basically, if we are successful in this effort, this particular remnant owned by the city would get cleaned up. We're unsure that it needs to be cleaned up, but we have to do the Phase 1 to know.
But in the event that we find that there needs to be some abatement, then we expect that the Finance Authority is going to cover that cost?
We expect that there would be money available for the remediation of the soil if needed, yes.
Okay. Is the stormwater structure on the surface, is it just like a collection pond?
I think they're all going to be surface, yes. The Utilities Department does not favor underground detention facilities. And so I think it would be in the staff report, I think it's discussed that the types of work that would be done are green infrastructure, and so it'd all be surface retention or plant matter that helps to reduce the flow of stormwater.
Questions from the public on this item? Again, if you're on Zoom, please use the raise hand function or the chat function. Okay, seeing nothing, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the Indiana Brownfields Program Phase 1 Site Access Agreement.
Second. The motion is second. We'll call roll. Lloyd?
Aye.
Carone, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Moving now to Resolution 2023-44, the uphold order to remove unsafe structure at 1205 South Madison Street.
Arnold Housing Neighborhood Development. This is actually an order or permission to do notice by publication, and it's actually orders to repair and seal. This is a property that we haven't been able to make direct contact with the owner regarding the order that we did for the property. So we're requesting that the board grant us permission to do notice by publication.
So that is a different request from the resolution that's in our packet tonight?
Yeah, that's what it looks like. If you'd like, we could redo this and bring it back at the next meeting.
Colleen Newville for legal. The resolution itself is actually for the notice of publication. It's not.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Colleen Newville from City Legal. The resolution in the packet is actually for the notice of publication, not to uphold the order.
So the resolution is correct in the packet, even the title of the resolution is not correct.
Correct. I can change that real quick if you need me to.
All right, let me just get to the resolution. Do you have a page number, Jennifer? Here it is. 181, authorization of notice by publication.
Correct.
All right, considering that, are there other questions? All right, are there any questions from the public on this item? And I assume legally, we're fine if we are voting on the resolution as it's provided in our packet, even though the title is incorrect on the agenda?
Correct, you are fine.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve Resolution 2023-44, authorization of notice by publication for unsafe property at 1205 South Madison Street, Bloomington, Indiana.
Second. I'll call roll. Lloyd?
Aye.
Caron, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to the lane closure request from Duke Energy on North Dunn Street and 17th Street from July 19 to December 31, 2023.
Paul Kerber with engineering. Duke Energy is starting phase 2 of their Bloomington reliability project. This will link the Dunn Street substation to the 11th Street substation, and they'll be installing new transmission line poles and a few distribution poles as well. This will be along North Dunn Street from 13th to 17th, and then along 17th from Dunn west to about Jackson Street. They're requesting lane and sidewalk closures as they work along their route, and the temporary closures will be in place from July 19th, 2023 to about December 31st, 2023. And we've walked the route with representatives from Duke. We've identified a few problem areas, and we've been working very closely with them, and we've reviewed their maintenance of traffic plans, and it's very, very detailed on the sidewalk closures and lane closures. There won't be any full street closures, but just lane closures. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Looks like on most of these closures, there are detour routes available. And roughly, how long do each of these closures typically last for this project? It's been ongoing for a while.
Right. Well, yeah, this is a new phase of the project. And then is Dawn, would you be able to answer that?
Yeah, I can help. Can you guys hear me now?
A little louder?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, typically it takes a couple of days to install a pole. As you guys are well aware, there's a lot of limestone in the area, and there's some underground. So it's been taking us just to dig the hole to set the pole base a couple of days, and then they come back through to set the pole tops, and then they'll come through again to actually string the wire. So the closure won't be the full entire closure the entire time. They will open up the area as they move on down the road.
Okay.
So it'll be just small sections of areas a couple days at a time. Kind of like what we're doing now. We will not need a full road closure like what's going on now along Rogers Street between 4th and 11th Street. But there will be lane closures on this section of the project like Paul mentioned.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there questions from the public on this item? Either in person or on Zoom? Okay, hearing no more questions, is there a motion?
I move that we approve lane closure request from Duke Energy on North Dunn Street and 17th Street from July 19th to December 31st, 2023.
Second, with a motion and a second, I'll call roll. Lloyd?
Aye.
Caron, aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the sidewalk closure request from Wells and Wells Construction on 2038 North Walnut Street from July 19, 2023 to August 2025.
Hello, Maria McCormick from Engineering. Wells and Wells Construction is requesting a closure of the sidewalk in front of 2038 North Walnut Street. For reference, it's the old Great Wall of China restaurant space or lot from August 1st actually until only May 31st of 2025 to install construction fencing around the perimeter of the site for the duration of the construction. There's a crosswalk to the south of this property that leads to the west side of Walnut Street along Miller Showers Park where there is a sidewalk. There's a crosswalk to the north of the property that will allow pedestrians to cross back over to the east side of Walnut Street. They're constructing an 8-story mixed-use building with commercial space, 172 dwelling units for a total of 463 bedrooms. The project's construction entrance will be off the private road to the northwest of the project. A condition for approval of this by the Plan Commission will require that a 10-foot sidewalk be replaced. Currently, it's a 48-inch sidewalk with a minimum of an 8-foot wide tree plot. So the sidewalk will be rebuilt at the completion of this closure.
All right. Questions from the board on this item?
None, thank you.
Any questions from the public on this item?
Hello, my name is Greg Alexander. This is extremely problematic. It's basically 2-year closure. Like the Duke project you were just hearing about, it's going to be about 6 months, but they're only going to close 2 weeks at a time, you know. But this is going to be just straight up. They're going to put up the fences before they do anything else, and then the sidewalk's going to be closed for 2 years. And they're going to ask for an extension at the end of it. It'll take more than 2 years at the end of it. We've got a lot of experience with this kind of project, and it's just completely inexcusable. The crosswalks that they're recommending the use of are not safe crosswalks. Somebody died at one of those crosswalks about 5 years ago. The cars are going about 45 miles an hour. Cars don't stop at crosswalks if the speed limit is over 30. That's just an engineering fact. You can ask our engineers, they should know that. And so drivers will not yield for those crosswalks, and they'll be very hazardous crossings. And there's a lot of traffic right there. So because there's a building just south of it, this is kind of like a dead area for pedestrian connectivity, but it's not a dead area for pedestrian users. There are now 1,000 people living just south of this proposed site. And those people need to be able to get to like the corner store for them. That little gas station that's on the corner there is where they're gonna go to buy soda and cigarettes and vapes and all the crap that kids buy. And in order to get there from the building just south, they're gonna have to actually go south, cross the road, travel on the sidewalk, and then cross again. That's 2 crossings. The MUTCD says that you have to, in a closure, you have to replicate the desirable characteristics. The most desirable characteristic of that sidewalk is not crossing Walnut Street twice. That is such an incredible burden to cross Walnut Street twice and to go backwards to do it. And it's going to be for 2 years. People are going to be walking in the street. People are going to be jaywalking. People are going to be doing unadvisable crossings. People will get hurt. And there's one other detail. From the MOT, it looks like they're going to preserve the bike lane. I'm just going to tell you, I've seen a lot of these. They're not. So we're going to also lose that bike lane. That is a miserable bike lane, but it is all we have. Other than that, we're biking in the road in Walnut. And Walnut right there is very, very wide. We could put barricades and we could just sacrifice the lane of Walnut and put in a protected bike lane / a multi-use path along the side of the road there where they don't have to cross the road. It would be on the same side of the road. We have plenty of space for that if we prioritize pedestrians that already live there over the drivers. But if we don't, then, screw those pedestrians. So thank you. I highly recommend you vote this down.
Can you speak to the question about the bike lanes?
So actually, we have somebody from Wells and Wells. It is my understanding, he can tell you, he'll be able to tell you exactly where the fence is going. My understanding is the fence will not impede the bike lane.
My name is Jesse Graber with Wells and Wells. I'm a senior project manager and will actually be the project manager on site for the core here at the Hub Bloomington. We are putting jersey barriers on the back side of the curb so that we're not interfering with the bike lane. We will have one known street crossing for the new sewer tap that will go in, but beyond that, all work that is taking place on the from the back side of the curb forward. The reason we are requesting the sidewalk closure is due to pedestrian protection during the construction. We are beginning construction on the west side of the building and moving to the east, which is why we've requested the lane closure, sidewalk closure for the amount of time that we did. We are confident that we can finish the facade on that end of the building and open that sidewalk back up before the absolute duration of the project. But the bike lane will be protected by the Jersey barriers on the back side of the curb, with the exception of the one sewer tap that we have to make into the street.
Sorry, did you say a Jersey barrier?
Concrete, so
Okay.
we're putting concrete barriers with a fence on top of it, but that will be on the back side of the curb, basically sitting on the existing sidewalk so that the bike lane is protected. Yep.
And I don't know which of you would answer this question, but is there any plan for any kind of traffic control at the pedestrian crossing aside from just the painted pedestrian crossing?
There is not at this time, no. This is similar to the traffic plan that was in place when they did build the Verve to the south, which is directly to the south of this property.
Was the Verve closer to an intersection with a traffic light?
No, it's still also in the middle of Walnut Street. It's where the old Motel 6 was.
I'm looking at there's a photo of the crosswalk that if you go across the street, it's into the Steak and Shake. And it appears that there's, it's incomplete, the join from the sidewalk to the crosswalk.
I did notice that.
Yeah.
If that is in fact still the case, we will work with Wells to get those panels replaced.
Prior to the closure?
Prior to the closing, yes.
I am also really concerned with so much student housing now in that area, to have so many people walking around with two crosswalks, needing to cross Walnut Street twice, as Mr. Alexander said. I don't know if engineering can speak to that, please.
Yeah, I don't really know. This was a plan that we had discussed, and it fits within the traffic plans that are acceptable for a walk-around for this type of sidewalk closure. The crosswalks are already in place. They're not going to be putting in any new crosswalks. So they're using existing infrastructure for this. We normally, for the standard, which we approved on 14th Street, they put in new sidewalks for their walk-arounds. Again, this is using existing infrastructure, existing sidewalk, existing crosswalks that are already in existence. So since it was existing infrastructure, we didn't feel the need to require anything be constructed at this point. But I mean,
Wells and Wells representative, this may be a pipe dream. You said that the closure is for the better part of 2 years, and you're starting with the west side of the building and moving east. If you were to start on the east and move west, would that shorten the need for the sidewalk closure?
The lowest part of the building is on the west side, and structurally, limitations require us to work from the low side up. But that does allow us to finish the street side first. So our primary concerns will be obviously all of the utility grading, storm, sewer, water. Once the structure is built and exterior facades are complete, we can do the infrastructure work that's on the site plan with the new street walks, entryways into the buildings, all the plantings and things like that, and then be able to get that sidewalk closure out of there.
Okay, thank you.
and just so you know, this closure was shown as part of their grading permit review and went through Plan Commission as well with these closures.
So Plan Commission approved this with these closures?
Plan Commission saw in the plans that this closure was part of the construction detail. Again, you guys, because it's public right-of-way, you have the ultimate.
Absolutely. I find that Mr. Alexander has a really compelling argument. I do not feel comfortable voting on this tonight, and I would probably rather have more conversation with staff before agreeing to a 2-year sidewalk closure in a heavily traveled area. So I think my vote tonight will be to abstain.
Okay. I guess my question, April, is can we take this off, can we table this for,
Discussion.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Yeah. We will table this item then.
I move that we table sidewalk closure request from Wells and Wells Construction on 2038 North Walnut Street from July 19th to 2023 to August 2025.
Second, I'll call roll for the tabling. Lloyd?
Aye.
Carone, aye. Motion tabled.
If the Jersey barriers are set behind the current sidewalks for the purpose of demolition and sidewalks remained open during this period of time, would we have permission to do that? As it would not affect the sidewalk and it would be protected by the Jersey barrier?
I can't speak. I'd have to have something from staff as to whether or not that's
That could be something that we could discuss at the
acceptable.
staff level.
Okay, would that require a board hearing if it didn't affect traffic?
I do not know the answer to that question,
Okay,
but it's something that we can discuss with the city engineer and the director of public works
okay,
and get you an answer on.
okay. That might, at that point, it might shorten, it would be an insurance thing that we would have to check on our side, but it might shorten the necessary duration this year. But at some point in time, it's going to be impossible to replace walks without closing
Right,
walks,
right,
so, okay.
Right.
I appreciate your thinking more about this.
And if you guys have any questions that you want the answers to, you let us know.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So then we'll move along to Lane, I'm sorry. Oh, sure.
Matthew Rollins. Matthew, if you would like to.
Yes, my name is Matthew Rollins. I represent Reed & Sons Construction, Inc. in Bloomington, Indiana, and I'm actually on the agenda for a lane closure. But in regards to this sidewalk closure, does it affect the sidewalk north of the old Indiana 37 cut through for vehicular traffic? Because I'm going to be awarded a project for Parks and Recs that will close that sidewalk and that pedestrian crossing between College and Walnut on Old State Road 37.
On Walnut Street.
Are you talking about the cut through that goes through that island, through the island that runs
Yes.
between?
Yes.
Okay. The vehicular traffic that goes back and forth?
That has not come before engineering.
I guess the question is,
Yes.
is that crosswalk, is the north crosswalk that we've discussed, is that north or south of that
That is
vehicular cut
south
through?
of that pedestrian. No, it might actually be right to that pedestrian island.
I think it does. I think it hits it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the south side hits the pedestrian island.
So maybe when this comes back.
Yes,
if
we
you
will
can
look at that,
just
because, yeah,
make sure
nobody
that there's
has,
no
nobody
conflict.
has talked to engineering about closing any crosswalks or right-of-way access for anything.
Okay.
And they would still have to talk to us and come to you to close any right-of-way access, regardless of what city department they are working for.
No, I understand. Yeah.
So,
Okay. Any other last questions or comments on this item?
I see nothing else on Zoom.
Okay, so let's move along to lane and sidewalk closure request from Reed & Sons on West 2nd Street from August 14th to August 18th, 2023.
Engineering. Reed & Sons Construction will be installing a new sanitary sewer lateral at 522 West 2nd Street. This is just west of South Rogers Street. For them to complete the work, they will need to do a sidewalk detour. They'll be using some of the parks property and then going to the north to connect back to Rogers and back down to 2nd. They plan, if the lanes are wide enough, they plan to just shift the lanes. If they don't have enough room to safely work, then they will have to require flagging. And I've talked to Matthew, who's on there, about the timing, because that's actually IU move-in week. And he's mentioned that he can do it either before or after that, and to not do the work during that week. So I just wanted to bring that up. And we'd be happy to answer any questions.
I'm sorry, I just missed, in regard to move-in week, that they're able, what they can or cannot do with that?
He can do the work either the week before that or the week after, and not
Okay.
do it during move-in week. And I know he's on, then he can probably speak to that better than I can. But
Yeah.
So would that then affect the dates
yes, it would. Yeah.
that we're voting on this evening?
Yeah, and I guess, Matthew, do you have an idea on whether you want to do it the week before or the week after? We didn't realize until after we were putting everything together.
I have no preference, but I'm sure my customer would probably prefer sooner than later, since they are having, sanitary backup issues into their building. This lateral is for Spring Point Architects, PC. So, yeah, I'm sure that they'd be happier the sooner we do it, the better.
Okay.
To approve this closure for the week of August 7th through August 11th, would that work for your purposes?
That would be okay with Reed and Sons Construction.
Okay.
And does that work for city staff and engineering?
Yes, yep,
Okay.
that does.
All right, any other questions from the board on this item? Any questions from the public?
I have nothing on Zoom.
Okay, seeing none, do we have a motion?
I move that we approve the lane and sidewalk closure request from Reed and Sons on West 2nd Street from August 7th to August 11th, 2023.
Second, I will call roll. Lloyd? Aye. Caron, aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we will move along to staff reports and other business.
Good evening. This is Alex Pratt from City Legal. I'm bringing an informational item to the board this evening. Can you hear me okay?
Okay, sorry.
I'm bringing informational item to the board this evening. The city is looking into revising Bloomington Municipal Code 1532-150, which in relevant part states, all accessible parking spaces within the 2-hour limit parking zones, on-street metered areas and city parking lots shall be limited to 4 hours. The 4-hour limit on accessible spaces when surrounded by non-accessible spaces without a time limit may violate the Americans with Disabilities Act. The city cannot discriminate against individuals based on disabilities unless there is a good reason to do so. And the paid meter spots around the city allow someone to pay the meter and park there all day if they choose. The accessible spots in the same area are also metered but limited to 4 hours. This may be a problem because individuals with disability are not afforded the same opportunity to pay to park all day. The 4-hour limit on accessible spots allows other individuals with disabilities to use those spots. However, this is more likely a reason to increase the number of accessible parking spots and cannot be considered a compelling reason under the ADA. In the meantime, the city will refrain from ticketing accessible spots in metered areas if the tickets are for parking in excess of 4 hours. However, ticketing accessible spots for failure to pay the meter are still fine. And then the city will also be looking to phase in more accessible spots around on-demand areas such as downtown. I can take any questions on this item.
Are there any questions from the public?
There's nothing on Zoom.
Okay. Thank you for sharing the
Great,
report.
thanks.
So we'll move along to the approval of claims. Does any member of the board have questions on claims this evening? No. Does anyone member of the public have questions about claims this evening? Okay. Hearing that, do we have a motion? Yes.
I move that we approve claims in the amount of $704,198.98.
Second, I will call roll. Lloyd?
Aye.
Caron, aye. Motion passes. If there is nothing else, then I will adjourn tonight's meeting. Thank you.